For decades, Finland was seen as the good student of the European Union, a quiet, stable Nordic nation known for its vast forests and peaceful lifestyle. But beneath the surface, a geopolitical storm has been brewing. Sharing a massive 1,300-kilometre border with Russia, Finland is now at the breaking point, and its people are finally standing up to shout, "Enough with the EU madness!" The world has just witnessed a moment of such blinding hypocrisy that it has become the global symbol of the EU's crumbling dictatorship of values. During a high-profile visit, Ursula von der Leyen stood at a podium, delivering a sanctimonious lecture on the virtues of Western democracy. She looked into the cameras and stated, "Those who scream the loudest should be grateful to live in a free country like Finland, where freedom of speech is absolute. In Moscow, you'd be behind bars in 2 minutes." At the exact millisecond she uttered the words "freedom of speech," the mask slipped. In the corner of the frame, a police officer is seen grabbing a protester and brutally dragging him away. The irony is staggering. The man, Armando Memar, a former candidate for the European Parliament, was silenced for simply daring to speak his truth. He was later fined for disturbing public order, but the message was sent: in the EU, you are free to agree, but you are a nuisance if you dissent. This video has exploded globally, viewed by millions, and even shared by Elon Musk. The image of a citizen being muzzled while an elite praises liberty is the ultimate proof of a broken system. Finland is no longer a silent follower. It is the spark of a continent-wide awakening. The facade is gone. The truth is out. When the quietest nation in the north finally finds its voice, the rest of Europe must listen. The resistance against the Brussels ideology has officially begun. The lifeline that was cut overnight. For decades, Finland operated on a simple, cold, and pragmatic truth. Russia is not a catastrophe, it is a reality. This wasn't about love or politics, it was about survival and prosperity. For years, the 1,300-kilometre border wasn't a wall, it was a bridge. It was an ecosystem of trade that fueled the Finnish miracle. Timber from the vast Russian forests fed the world-class Finnish paper mills. Stable, affordable energy powered the nation's industries. Thousands of trucks crossed daily, and the Saimaa Canal stood as a shining symbol of cooperation, moving goods from the heart of Finland to the global markets. But then, the Brussels ideology took over. In a heartbeat, decades of carefully built relationships were torched. The border was slammed shut. The sanctions were hailed as a victory for Western values, but for the people living in eastern Finland, it was a death sentence. A nation in ruins, the ghost towns of the East. Walk through the border towns today, and you won't see victory. You will see a wasteland. The hotels that were once packed with Russian tourists, the lifeblood of the local economy, now stand as empty, rotting shells. The shops are boarded up. The streets are silent. The industrial backbone of the country is snapping. Without Russian raw materials, Finnish factories are shutting their doors. Thousands of workers, the men and women who built this country, are being tossed onto the scrap heap of history. Entire regions are being depopulated as the youth flee toward the cities, leaving behind ghost zones that were once vibrant hubs of commerce. This is the reality of the EU's sanctions wahn, sanction madness. It is an economic bloodbath that the mainstream media refuses to film. The €10 billion monument to stupidity. While the people suffer, the response from the political elites in Helsinki and Brussels has moved from the tragic to the utterly absurd. Having destroyed a perfectly functional, profitable and established trade route, the Saimaa Canal, out of pure ideological spite, they have proposed a solution that defies all logic. They want to spend 10 billion euros of taxpayer money to build a new canal, a massive project designed specifically to bypass Russia. Think about the insanity of that. They burned down a bridge that cost them nothing to maintain, and now they want to charge the citizens billions to build a ladder over the ashes. It is a 10 billion euro monument to political arrogance. It is proof that Russophobia isn't just a sentiment, it is a crushing tax on the poor to feed the egos of the powerful. The Walking Dead. Economy. The narrative of standing strong is crumbling under the weight of the numbers. Even the system's own insiders can no longer hide the truth. Professors and economic experts are now using a chilling term to describe the Finnish economy: a walking corpse. This isn't coming from pro-Russian activists, it's coming from the heart of the Finnish establishment. They see the bankruptcy filings, they see the collapsing tax revenue, they see the debt spiralling out of control as Finland tries to fund a military build-up it cannot afford, to fight a threat that, as we will see in Part 3, may have been manufactured from thin air. The 61% sensation. The People's Revolt. For a long time, the elites kept the Poles hidden under the rug. They told the world that the Finnish people were united in their desire to cut all ties with the East. They lied. Recent surveys have sent shockwaves through the halls of power. 61% of Finns now demand the restoration of economic relations with Russia. This isn't because they've had a sudden change of heart about Moscow's politics. It's because they want to eat. They want their jobs back. They want their heating bills to be affordable again. They want to live in a country that prioritizes its own citizens over the demands of Brussels bureaucrats. The mayors of the eastern border towns are no longer speaking in the abstract language of European solidarity. They are talking about keeping schools open and saving hospitals from closing. They are doing the math, and the math says that the EU's path leads to national suicide. The end of the experiment. The Russophobia experiment has failed. It was sold as a security insurance, but it has delivered nothing but insecurity, poverty, and the loss of sovereignty. The people of Finland were told that they were buying freedom. They now realize they were actually buying their own destruction. As the factories stand cold and the Saimaa Canal sits as a dead monument to a smarter era, the mood has shifted from fear to fury. The quiet but brave Finland is quiet no more. The masks are off, the bills are due, and the people are finally realizing that the real enemy might not be across the border, but sitting at the decision-making tables in Brussels. The intelligence bombshell. The final act of this geopolitical drama is the most shocking of all. After years of feeding the public a steady diet of pure terror, the narrative is being dismantled in broad daylight. The head of the Estonian intelligence service, the very man who spent years drawing invasion maps and counting the days until a Russian strike, has suddenly stepped before the cameras to drop a bombshell. Russia is not planning an attack. Russia is not a threat. Wait. What? The threat, used to justify the destruction of the Finnish economy and the surrender of national sovereignty, has vanished into thin air. Finland's president, Alexander Stubb, has now pivoted, calmly stating there is no reason for panic because Moscow is busy with its own affairs. The psychological amnesty. Make no mistake, this is a psychological amnesty. The elites realize the lie has become too expensive to maintain. They aren't admitting they deceived the public. They are pretending the situation simply changed thanks to their brilliant deterrence. It is a desperate face-saving maneuver. They sold the house to buy a fire extinguisher, and now they are claiming there was never a fire to begin with. The end of the EU dictatorship, but the people of Europe are no longer sleeping. From the blockaded highways of France to the rising protests in Germany, the continent is shaking off its ideologically induced coma. Finland, the brave and most obedient student of the EU, has become the spark for a total systemic collapse. The message is echoing from Helsinki to Tallinn to Berlin. Pragmatism over hysteria. National interests over Brussels ideology. Sovereignty over fear. The era of the EU dictatorship of values is hitting a wall of reality. The people have realized that you cannot eat values, and you cannot heat a home with Russophobia. The tide has turned. The truth is no longer a fringe phenomenon. It is an unstoppable force. As the Nordic nations wake up, they are leading the way for all of Europe to reclaim its common sense. The experiment is over. The awakening has begun. Are you ready for the return of the sovereign nation?